those. Yeah, so tonight we're talking about postpartum, which is a favorite of ours. So,
Nice.
yeah. So, all right. Yeah, I don't know. Lindsay, I know you may have to go or duck out at some point.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Do you have any wisdom you want to dive right in with about the postpartum period?
I feel like I had something fairly profound, to say earlier today, and then it kind of got away from me. So I'm sure that once we get talking,
yeah,
it was basically, it was one sentence, and that was really okay. So here it is.
Okay.
When it comes to parenting and the postpartum period, don't overcomplicate it and don't overthink it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be really hard, even if you're a laid back person or you feel like, no, I've got this. And there's still going to be times that you're going to overthink things. You're going to overpack.
Everyone does.
Yeah. But time is of the essence. And with any new skill, I don't know if even saying like you get better at it. This isn't something that you like progressively get better at parenting, because every day is brand spanking new, and those kids have changed overnight, that it's just you get smoother at it, and you learn about your kids, and not every kid fits into the same box, and your kids are not your friends' kids who maybe don't sleep through the night, and your friend is giving you all this sleep advice when you're kind of like, guess what? Like, I'm getting like good 5-hour chunks. Or it could be the complete opposite way. Someone's bragging about their kids sleeping, and you're like, ah. So yeah, it was really the don't overthink it, and whatever the other over was.
I don't know.
Overplan, I think.
I'm a little distracted. Yeah, just you've got this. You really do. And on the days where you feel like you're doing it with 2 left hands or 2 right hands, depending on your dexterity, I promise you that the majority of parents out there are feeling the same exact thing. There's a handful that are probably like, nope, today's my good day. And you're like, but today's my bad.
Yeah. I think that's what I hear so often from like the moms that come to our breastfeeding group, is like literally every one of them thinks that they're like the only one who's struggling. And then they come to group and they're like, oh no, wait, every other person in the room is struggling with something, because that's just how life is. Like there's always something we're struggling with, and so like, it's really, I think if you can get into a group, or find some kind of in-person group to kind of just show up as your kind of messy human self and find that other people are in the same boat, I think it can be really healing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. But yeah, I mean, I think we should also clarify when we talk about postpartum, we're literally just talking about the post-birth period of time. A lot of people just have the association with postpartum as postpartum depression.
Right.
And so a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I run a postpartum group, and people will be like, oh, but I don't have postpartum.
And you're like, but you are postpartum.
Like you gave birth, so you're in that club.
Yeah.
So I always just like to clarify, but I think it's, we spend so much time in our culture preparing for the birth. And I feel like there's like, it's like this happily ever after. We're like, and then baby's here and happily ever after. And like, that's like when the work begins, you know, you have to like have your kid and parent them. But I think we really love to really talk about that postpartum time period and like what you're going to be, you know, what is going to be happening in your body, what may be happening emotionally, you know, and all of that good stuff. So we're going to give kind of a laundry list of like all of the possible difficulties you might encounter. And so I want to just preface that by saying like, you know, the postpartum time period, those first weeks after you have your baby are really difficult, and that we don't want to like sugarcoat it because it's a hard time, but it's also a really amazing time when you are finding out how much love you're capable of and how much just badass stuff you're capable of, you know? And it's amazing, but it's also really challenging. So we want to talk about some of those challenges in a real way, you know, and how to get past them and how to really support your own getting your needs met, really. Because that's, I think, after you have a baby is like the hardest time in your whole life to do self-care. It's like the hardest time for self-care.
Right. You're healing
Yeah.
physically too. Something really major, even if it's very straightforward vaginal birth or a complicated cesarean or a complicated vaginal birth or a straightforward cesarean. It really is a lot for your body to be recovering. And you know, normally if you had a major physical event happen to your body, you have time to lay on the couch and rest, and we'd be encouraging you, no, you need to rest, you can't be doing this and that. But instead we send you home with a baby and we say, please, you need to heal. But also, like, now you have a human who is fully dependent on you. So that falls on the world and taking better care of mothers. So
Yes.
let's hope that we're trying to help right some of those wrongs, but also like to remember, like, you know, when you may be getting overwhelmed with like the baby and the newness of everything, but also remind yourself, like, I'm healing too, you know. And it's emotional no matter what. I think back to my births that I would consider pretty like low-key births, but they still took an emotional toll on me. And I'm still thinking about them and processing them. 10, you know, years later, you're still in it.
Yeah.
So it's.
I saw this meme recently that said, it's like being in a car accident and like being told to go home and then look after this infant that's also been in a car accident.
Yeah.
Something like that. I was like, yeah, that pretty much like sums it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, it's a little dark, but it's also like,
yeah, like humorous, right?
Yeah, but also like very accurate.
Yeah.
Right. And also having the right support system in place for the postpartum time is really, really important. And I actually, I just spoke to a grandmother of a client, and like she wanted to set up that help because she even knew herself that she wouldn't be able to, you know, answer certain questions and things like that, which is great. So really getting like your group of people you trust in your circle, and you know that, you know, you all have us forever to ask questions.
Yeah, and that's important to know because our program goes like 4 months postpartum, but you can always reach out where we really, it's not like we're going to be like, sorry, you're cut off, you know, you can.
We can't answer that question. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about a physical healing. You know, we talked a lot about the birth process, what actually goes on. And so there is, you know, birth, and I always like to say birth and pregnancy they're natural processes, but they're also kind of a big deal for your body, obviously. I'm sure you've noticed, you know, but so, you know, you have this human passing through your body. So you're going to be pretty sore even under the best of circumstances. And I think sometimes people are surprised by that, weirdly. But like, yeah, your whole perineal area, the area around your vulva, is going to be pretty sore. So ice packs, like, it's one of those, like, you never thought ice packs would feel good down there, but they totally do. So just really supporting that, you know, that kind of outward healing too, is like sitz baths are great, where you just kind of sit in a little bit of water. They even have the ones that fit over the toilet. So those are great. You know, ice packs. You will have some postpartum bleeding. It's called lochia, and that's normal. It's a little bit like like menstruating. What I love to tell people about it, I know, Lindsay, I'm sure you tell people the same thing, is it's like your body's alarm system. So it's going to be pretty heavy the first couple of days after you give birth, and then it's going to ramp down and it'll get less and less. But if you start doing more activity than your body is ready for, it's going to come back bright red and a lot more. So if you notice that, that's kind of your body being like, go back to the couch.
Yeah, like you overdid it today. You know, you lifted a little bit more than you should have, and sometimes you're going to feel so much better and you're going to want to get the things done. But it is good still to rest. Just one thing I want to bring up with the ice packs and the perineum, sometimes your tailbone is a bit sore as well after, and sometimes people are really surprised by that. They didn't realize that, like, the hard tissue and the bone can sometimes be sore too, and you know, it's just sometimes good to have a heads up, like, oh yeah, like all of that in that region has kind of had a baby pass by.
Yeah. So you know, just heads up about that. And then, you know, also just that you may have night sweats. A lot of the postpartum moms I work with, like, they come and they're like, I am waking up in a puddle every night. So, you know, night sweats are really normal. It's a hormonal thing. It's also like a fluid loss thing, because you put on extra blood volume when you're pregnant. So your body has to kind of diurese all of that fluid. So you might be peeing frequently still. You might be having night sweats. It's all, and just know that, like, we tell you this not to scare you, but just so you know that, like, it's normal.
Right.
You know, and then I feel like there's like a lot of talk on the internet about how nobody ever tells you about the first postpartum bowel movement. But I feel like there's now so much on the internet about how no one tells you about it that I think people know about it, I hope.
I actually don't think other than, like, it's kind of traumatic. So maybe I actually, like, haven't read anything. So yeah, I'd be curious to know.
I remember just, it wasn't like the thing itself was not so bad, but I remember having just a lot of anxiety about it, because I was like,
yeah,
everything is so sore down there. Like, how is this even gonna happen?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And yeah, and just like when you're having a baby vaginally, like, you kind of like don't push too hard, and I just would tell myself, like, just stay soft and relax, and like it made things so much better. Plus also a stool softener helped a lot.
Yeah, I definitely also recommend a stool softener.
yeah.
Just because, yeah, you don't want to be passing anything hard in those first few days. It can be pretty uncomfortable, because also your whole pelvic floor is all kind of stretched out, and so you don't want to be like having to push out, you know, a bowel movement. That's not going to go well. So yeah, I just remember that, like, the anxiety about it was worse than anything else. So, but yeah, so stool softeners are great. I have, like, my list of things we should talk about. like you're still going to look pregnant. I think that's a thing that a lot of people are surprised by, is you still look about 5 months pregnant, probably when you go home from your birth center, your hospital, or wherever you're birthing. So, don't pack your like pre-pregnancy jeans, because that's not going to go well for you. It's not going to be comfortable. So just to kind of, be aware that you're going to still have that postpartum belly, and that's, again, just that it's normal, that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your body. It's just that you've got a lot of swelling and just extra stuff there. So just be so patient with your body. One of the things I hear over and over again is like, when do I get back to my pre-pregnancy body? And I've loved your discussion, Summer, on your podcast about some of these issues, because it's a thing I hear all the time. So I just, for anyone who's watching the recorded one too, just like be so patient and so loving with your body, because you're growing a human. This is like not a small thing, and you don't owe anyone a certain aesthetic. Like you don't owe anyone shit, basically. So just be comfortable, be in your body, and be so patient with things. And because you don't have to get back to any sort of body. Like, you don't need to get your body back. It didn't go anywhere. It's still there, So, and on that same thing, like you need to really be nourishing your body. You're healing. So you need lots of energy to heal from the birth process, and also to like fuel yourself, because you're not going to be sleeping the way that most adults do. You're going to be tired, and when you are running on a sleep deficit, often your body needs more food fuel to get you through that. And so you want to make sure that you have some, like, if you have people who can bring you meals, that's pretty great. And, like maybe you do a little more takeout or a little more pre-prepared food than you're used to, just because you got to get food in your body. Like this is the season in your life where like some of our standards are going to be lowered a little bit, and that's okay. And it's temporary,
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't know.
I want to add, like, that's why when people say to you, like, what can we really, we want to bring you something, or we want to get you something that you really, really need. And most likely by the time you have a baby, you have enough onesies, you have enough washcloths, you have enough this and that. Say like gift cards to takeout restaurants that you like, because it really comes in handy to just be able to like call up and be like, feed me, I think is a really nice gesture.
Yeah. And there's actually a website, I'll share it, but it's called Meal Train. I don't know. Have you heard of it? But it's like this free website. You go and set up like a calendar, and then you send a link out, and people can sign up for different days to bring you food, which is really nice. And we just did one for a friend of mine that was recovering from surgery, and she actually was staying with us. And so people brought these like amazing meals because we're caring for her. So it was a really lovely gesture for our community to care for us a little bit, since we were caring for our friend. So
Nice.
I'm a big fan of Meal Train during the postpartum period. So I'll share that link when I share I'll share it tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you have any, like, Summer, how are you feeling? Do you have any like worries or questions or anything you want to make sure we talk about the postpartum period?
It's so hard to know, like, what I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I read that book, The Fourth Trimester, and I feel like it was so helpful, like, in terms of explaining what happens to your body and explaining what happens to your hormones. And like her whole thing is like, for the first 6 weeks, like you shouldn't be doing anything other than nursing, and like that's about it. Like feeding, like having and like basically like have someone there to help you, like to feed you. And so that helped me a lot. So I feel like I've set myself up to have a lot of support, which is good. but and then outside of that, I just don't know what I don't know. But I think, for me, I'm definitely like more of a planner.
Yeah.
And so I think just wrestling with the planning, like type A side of my brain is going to be, it's way better than it used to be. But
yeah, I hear that though. And that is really, it's hard because we sort of live in this world where we get very analytical and we get very into that kind of brain. And early parenting is really pretty primal in a lot of ways. And so and birth certainly, you have to kind of like get out of your own way, but it's hard. It's really hard to not have it be so cerebral.
yeah, and I think, what was I going to say on that? Like wanting to fix stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, we could fix this. Like something's wrong. Like, well, let's fix it. Knowing that like sometimes it's just, there's nothing you can do and the baby's just going to be, fussy or crying or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're holding your baby and maybe, offering the breast and seeing if maybe baby will take those things. And sometimes babies will still cry no matter what, but it's always nicer to be held and be crying than not, which it makes sense. And
yeah,
even if you're holding the baby and the baby's crying and you're feeling frustrated, because that's going to happen no matter how calm you stay, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, like I need a break from this, and that's why you have good support, which is awesome, because sometimes you have to kind of hand the baby off and go take a few minutes for yourself. But also what I want to just say is you are doing something. So even if if the fix is getting the baby to stop crying, but that's not happening, you're still helping the situation by holding the baby or walking the baby, or even sometimes putting the baby in the stroller and going out for a walk, because those are all lovely things, and you are doing something. On the days that you feel like you didn't get anything done or fix things or any of that, like as long as you're showing your baby love, like you did it. Like that's all you need to know, like
you survived.
And even now, like 10 years out, there are days where I'm like today is one of them where I'm just like, at the end of the day, like everybody got fed at least a little, and like maybe they didn't like it, but they got fed and we're all still alive. And that's like, that's the bar, So.
Yeah, we had cereal for dinner tonight. I made ice cream promises after the beach, and we didn't make that, and everybody was bummed out about that. And I was like, we ran out of time today. Like, didn't get ice cream, but you got cereal for dinner. Like, that's pretty cool. And sometimes it's just how it goes, and kids learn that mom's doing her best.
Yeah. So, and I think it's important too, like in the early days, it's, one of the things I say when I go and do like a lactation visit is I'm always like, you are doing a good job. Because I think that parents need to hear it, but also I only say it when it's true, I promise. But it's so interesting to me because the response almost universally when I get back is like, I don't feel like I'm doing a good job. And I think it's so important to just know that like nobody feels like a rock star 4 days postpartum, like literally.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how great you're doing. No one is going to feel like a rock star. So, just know that like you are doing okay. Like, I mean, look at, you've got your support lined up. Like you're already a kick-ass mom. Like you're doing great. So, you're going to be just fine.
As long as I don't kill them.
Yeah, like you'll probably not do that, so you'll be fine.
I'll appreciate them there. No, it's just funny because it's my mom and my mother-in-law, but yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, like the bar is pretty low, and that's fine. So like I used to want to raise the next like president, and now I'm like, I just want them to not be internet trolls. Like that's all. And flush the toilet. It would be great if they would flush the toilet. So, Um, but yeah, so I mean, I think like just kind of honoring that physical process, and I really always think of breastfeeding as nature's way of like keeping you laying down or sitting down and resting, because that's really what you're going to spend the bulk of your time doing, is just snuggling and nursing your baby. And we'll talk, our next call is going to be all about breastfeeding, so we'll talk a little
nice.
more, yeah, about breastfeeding in the next call. But I just think it's really, I always just like to set up that expectation that like your baby is going to feed really frequently and that that's normal. So, you know, you're going to be spending a lot of time, and that's really, like I said, it's nature's way of keeping you resting and recovering.
I actually have a weird question.
Yeah.
I was going to post it in the group and then I forgot. And you just reminded me of it. Because my mom said this and I like laughed at her because I was like, no way. And then I was like, maybe this is true. And so my mom's like, you need to start toughening up your nipples. Like, she's like, you should like take a washcloth and like rub them a bit, like have some like coarse fabric, like
Ooh, ooh.
Oh, so yeah, that is the thing that people love to tell pregnant women. It used to be kind of the standard advice, so she may have heard it when she was pregnant. You don't need to. Absolutely not. That's bananas. Like,
I was like, I'm pretty sure that's an old wives' tale. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, and she's like, Summer, you're gonna regret it. And I was like, okay, like, let's just end this discussion. We're just like gonna disagree here.
yeah.
But then I was like, maybe there is some truth to it.
No, science says no. It's like, it's not a thing you need to do. They used to tell people that, but no, we really don't want to be abrading the nipples ever, really. So
I feel like that would actually like work against you.
it really does, actually. Like, it just, you don't want to create skin breakdown before you have some stuff on there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad I could ask you.
Yeah. Also, that's not a weird question in my world at all. So. But yeah, and we'll talk when we do breastfeeding about some of those myths that like you have to like prepare for breastfeeding. Really, all you have to do to prepare for breastfeeding is learn about breastfeeding. So you're good. You don't need anything else. Yeah, you know, but I think too, like, there's the physical process, but also like we have to really honor the emotional and kind of the spiritual process that happens after you have a baby. And part of that is like processing all of the weird stuff that people tell you, you know. But I think that that's a part that we don't really have any space for in our mainstream culture, you know. So Lindsay and I talk about all the time about just supporting your emotional health after you have a new baby. You know, I love that I haven't yet read the 4th trimester, but it's on my list. Every time somebody mentions it, I'm like, oh, I have to read that. But just to kind of know that like your hormones are going to be all over the place, particularly like day 3 postpartum is a big hormone shift. You're switching over from your colostrum, that first milk, to your mature milk. And there's a big hormone shift that comes with that. So day 3 is usually a really rough day emotionally, for like no good reason, you know. And I love to just talk a little bit, because we have this kind of trope in our culture too, that like, oh, you know, she's just hormonal. And like, it's a really like crappy way to dismiss someone's feelings. And so when we talk about that, like, I just feel like we need to just say that like, your feelings are still real. Your feelings are still valid, you know, but what hormones do, they don't make you have extra feelings, but they can really magnify things and make them feel less manageable. So I just want to, you know, be clear that we're not saying like, oh, you're going to be hormonal and crazy, because that's like a way that the patriarchy discounts women's feelings. But you know, we want to just acknowledge that like your feelings may be harder to manage. and that's okay. That's normal.
Yeah, and they might just like kind of come up and bite you when you're not expecting them. I mean, I truly don't remember any of the day threeness that people talk about. I, was moving along smoothly. It was at 2 weeks where I was home alone for the first time, and that day I won't forget because I didn't get out of my pajamas all day that I had worn the entire day before. And I thought, well, this is crazy. How did I not get out of my pajamas today? And then, like, some Alicia Keys song came on the TV, and I started crying, like, as I was feeding my son, because it just all hit me at the same time. And I was like, whoa, like, this is so powerful right now. And I will never ever forget it, and I will never forget that song whenever I hear it, and what I was going through. And it gets you like at random times, and it's okay, and you're not crazy. And we just encourage you to totally like feel what you're feeling and reach out if it's a really crummy day, or reach out to us if it's a really awesome day and you want to share with people who are going to cheer along with you instead of telling you what you should be doing unless you ask for help, or just be there with you and honor those emotions, because again, they're real and they're magnified, just like Liz said. It's totally normal.
Yeah, and I just think that's really important to talk about a little bit, because it's a fine line between like honoring that your feelings may be different or magnified or come up in a different way, and saying like, and dismissing them. So we just always want to encourage everybody to like feel your feels, just like enjoy your feels, or don't enjoy them, that's fine too. But like also just kind of allow yourself to feel however you feel without criticism. In that Come As You Are book, which is a favorite of mine, she talks about those meta emotions and how like you have your feelings, and then you have how you feel about your feelings, and how sometimes that is where we really get tripped up emotionally. And so part of really caring for yourself and being gentle with yourself, especially in the postpartum time period, because it's such a vulnerable time, it's such a liminal space, you're really in between two worlds. But part of being really gentle with yourself is letting yourself feel however you feel. And you might have days where you're like, I regret doing this. You might have days where you're like, this is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. And you might have days where you're really frustrated and feeling angry with your baby. And all of those feelings are totally normal and totally okay. So you don't need to like add another layer of like guilt and shame on top of, because we sometimes have this feeling like we're supposed to be like blissed out, enjoying every minute, which is our least favorite phrase. It's like, it's the worst. You don't need to enjoy every minute. And if you're not enjoying it, like, that's okay. Just feel how you feel, and that's fine. I think the only phrase I hate more than enjoy every minute is pump and dump. That's my least favorite phrase. That's the worst. So we'll talk about that next time. And I think too, honoring that like your feelings may be magnified, or more difficult to manage because you're running at a sleep deficit. It's normal and important for babies to feed at night and to wake at night. Despite kind of our cultural weirdness about how we think babies should sleep. But so just kind of, we're big on like napping. Napping is important self-care in the postpartum period. So just kind of like be so gentle and so tender with yourself. Nap when you need it, eat good food, like really go back to like the very basics of self-care. Mara Glatzel has this episode of her podcast, the Needy Podcast, that's like, you're more than just a complicated houseplant. where she really talks about going like way back to the very basics of self-care. So I'll link to that episode too, but that I actually recommend that episode to a lot of our postpartum clients, because I think it's just a really good way to get started. So just making a note to share that. Yeah, and I think too, like, it's important to talk about how our focus shifts. Like during pregnancy, there's a lot of focus on pregnant women and really like that journey and that experience. And then we talk about birth. But like in a lot of ways, it's like after baby arrives, everyone's like, great, now it's all about the baby. And like, good luck, mom. You know, and it's really kind of crappy. So I want to just encourage everybody to like really bring some of that focus back onto yourself and really don't be shy about asking for what you need. Do you see that too, Lindsay?
Oh gosh, all the time. And people joke about it. And I mean, we all take things differently. So I mean, that's, you know, if someone's comfortable joking about it and they're happy, like that's fine. But I feel that it definitely reveals some underlying feelings of like, oh, hey, like you used to be asking me like how I was doing and you know, making it all about me. And I mean, and that's sometimes a hard shift too, in a very in a way that like I didn't expect, that I was almost kind of like jealous, I don't know, or just hyper aware to the fact that like I mean, and I was always very well loved and very well taken care of. I'm not, you know, but it's like, oh, the baby, like this isn't just me anymore. So there were some feelings there where, you know, like I wanted to go take a nap and do whatever I wanted to. Like I missed that. Yeah. So there is a shift. There is a shift. But I think it's also okay to make some noise and be a little loud and say, I'm so happy you're here to see the baby and everything. I would, you know, depending on who's at your house,
Can you make me a
I
sandwich?
I would love to go make myself a sandwich and go take a nap. Or I'd love to not discuss my birth today or how breastfeeding's going. I don't want to talk about it today.
Yeah.
Or yeah, I want to tell you all about it. But I need, you know, I need some attention too. And that's okay. Again, like we get really uncomfortable bringing attention to ourselves and we want to, you know, oh no, it's okay. Like, let's talk all about the baby. I mean, babies are awesome, but you are too.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, we see it even medically, like we, you know, you hear stories about women who've given birth and have some kind of postpartum complication that goes, you know, unnoticed because the focus medically is on the baby too. So I think it becomes really important to advocate for your needs. And also if you feel like something's not right, to really speak up about that. You know, chances are you're not going to experience any of that. And, you know, like more than likely it's going to be fine. But like if you feel like something's not right, I think we really are trained to like almost gaslight ourselves and downplay that and like, oh, you know, I'm probably making a big deal out of nothing. But no, you're not. Speak up and, you know, get your needs met. That's really important. So
And that goes for your emotional needs too. Don't keep, you know, if you're having kind of a rough day and then you pull yourself out of it. But if you're, you know, if you're feeling like, okay, you know, you would have the wherewithal to be like, I'm just not feeling somewhat of myself. You tend to know.
yeah.
And don't discredit that too, because that's what happens a lot of the time is that we're like, oh, I'm sleep deprived, I'm hungry, I'm this, I'm that, you know. It could be it's a culmination of a lot of things, and it is good to have someone to talk to, even if you don't feel that you're going down any sort of like, severe depression, anxiety road, I think it's still good to set up a professional to speak to, if you don't already have someone.
Yeah, I feel like every new
Mhm,
parent should have a counselor
mhm,
just to have like a space to talk about that stuff. I think it's really important.
mhm,
Um, and I hear a lot of from women being like, "Oh, I know I'm just being crazy."
mhm.
Um, and I actually I had a mom say that to me during a consult last week. She was like, "I think I'm just being crazy," and I was like, "No, you are not being crazy. Like something is not right here, which is why I'm here.
Mhm.
Like there's a bunch of red flags. So you're not being crazy. This is like your instinct is telling you something. So we got to listen to that." So I think it's just honoring that. And I think one of the things that I always like to touch on too, that I see a lot, is like, I think we as women in our culture, we're really used to being like hyper competent, like we get shit done, we tick off those boxes, like we are really competent and we're used to sort of being good at things. um and I found this, and I hear echoes of it a lot from our clients, where we're used to like getting a lot done in a day. And when you have a baby, it's like suddenly all of that kind of grinds to a halt, and your life just moves at a different pace in those first few weeks postpartum. And that can be really difficult to work through, because for a lot of us, our identity is really wrapped up in our productivity and how much we're doing. And when that shifts and you're not able to be as kind of visibly productive, like never mind that you're caring for a tiny human and producing food for them and like doing all of the things to keep them alive, you don't see that accomplishment accumulate. You don't see it. And so I think like it can really affect our sense of self and we feel a little bit lost. So I always just like to kind of like, I don't know that you can really take it away, but just maybe you can kind of brace yourself a little bit to be like, I'm not my productivity. I am doing all the things I need to do, and just kind of honor that process too. So I always just like to touch on that.
That's awesome.
I don't know.
Mm. Yeah.
Anything else that you want to touch on, Lindsay?
No, I really feel like the really important things were covered and recovered.
I know.
Like, no, but like it's good because those are the really, really, really important things. You're gonna learn so much about yourself and your baby and kind of you know how you operate as a parent, and patience is a big helper. Just take your time doing things, and you know it's just it's baby land. It's a whole other world. It's a whole other world full of really cool magic and poopy diapers and laughs and you know self-discovery. I'm so excited for everybody in this group. It's kind of neat seeing the progression, and knowing that in due time, but sooner rather than later, your babies are going to be here. And I love that.
Yeah. I do. I think it's like it's such a transformative time, and I think that like there is a lot of hardship involved because it's a big life transition. Any life transition comes with that. Um but I think that like in a lot of ways we sort of get to see what we're made of, and that like even these difficulties are not going to break you, that you are going to come out of it with more capacity to love than you ever imagined, and more capacity to like just for physical endurance and also for emotional endurance, you know, you really kind of learn that you are capable of more than you ever thought you were. And it's also just like to have the journey with your partner and like be a part of a team. There's always some friction there too, because it's a stressful time, but also like to see your partner really growing into that role as a parent too it's really powerful stuff. It's really like it's an amazing time. So I think I don't want to like, you know, I know we just talked about how hard it is for like an hour, but you know, I also want to just piggyback on what Lindsay said and just talk about like how joyful it is too. And you're going to spend time just like marveling at your baby's tiny little toes, you know, and all of that cool stuff. And he's going to start showing you his personality. And it really like, it's amazing. So
yeah, it's so amazing. And just kind of on the capacity of love, and you will see other, you know, parents in a whole new light, and your love for like others will grow because you understand a little bit about like what it means, you know, to be a parent. So your love for others will grow, and your love for other babies will grow. I mean, I see babies all the time, and I love them because like I've lived with babies and birthed my own, and I'm like, you are so cool. And even though you're not my baby, like I love your little hands. And I do. I think our capacity to love more people, I hope. I mean, you know, it's that ripple effect. And if you're taken well care of during your pregnancy and your postpartum time and on your parenting journey, that passes on to your child, and that child will be raised in love, and then that child will want to be, you know, give love. And I feel like it has such a really cool ripple effect, and you're part of that, so that's really neat.
Yeah. So and I'm sure that I just it's really cool. And I'm sure questions will come up about postpartum even before your baby is earthside, but then when you're in it too, I'm really glad that we'll be here as a resource so you can ask those questions. And, you know, I'm sure we'll be talking about some of the feels that come up and all that good stuff. But yeah, we're here for you. And I want to wrap up because I want to respect everybody's time. But thank you for joining us tonight, Summer. And
yeah, I'm glad I can make it.
Yeah.
So, so I'll post the video hopefully tomorrow or the next day at latest, and then we'll just continue the conversation. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
good luck with the birth.
Yeah.
Exciting.
He's got it. Bye.
Bye.